Hello again. This week I've got a few pens to try. I bought these off Etsy from somebody called Inkursive, and originally it was this Fude pen that caught my eye. Fude nibs are the ones that are bent at the end, which allow you to get different thicknesses with one single pen. So yeah, it just seemed a good price. It was just under £10, and I noticed that they had 3 different pens. You could buy a set of 3 pens for just under £20, which I thought was a bit of a bargain. And I've always thought see-through pens are rather cool, so I bought the set just to give them a go and see how I like them. So first of all, let's try the. Let's have a look at this Fude nib pen. So all 3, I say 3. I've only got 2 here. I gave one away already to my son. But all 3, the ones that I chose, have got this piston thing which you twist at the end here, and there is a little locking mechanism, so there's no danger of it, or less danger of it, turning in your pocket or bag and squirting all the ink out the end, and you refill it by dipping the end in and turning the end, dipping the nib in, which seems to work all right. So this is the Fude nib pen, which has the bent nib. So with the Fude nib, you can get a range of thicknesses quite easily just by tilting the pen. So when I hold it vertically, I get quite a thin stroke. Is that like a fine or an extra fine? If I tilt it ever so slightly, I get a slightly thicker line. If I hold it in my normal position, slightly thicker still, and then if I really flatten it, I get something slightly broader. And I think it works really rather nicely. You know, it's like you don't have to keep switching pens every time you want to use something thicker. You can do your thin lines, and then if you want to firm something up, you tilt it down a little bit, and you can do your bolder lines, or if you need to colour an area in. It's a very versatile drawing tool. And I think it works really nicely. It's got a good flow. It's coping all right with this platinum carbon ink that I'm using. So that's a Fude nib. And I think that was a bargain. A really nice drawing tool. I say drawing tool, I mean they're made for writing, I suppose, but I just use pens mainly for sketching. Otherwise, you can see, I think they're made by Swan. There's a sort of Swan logo there. And it's cheap, but it feels well enough made. It's kind of, I think it will do the job. The next nib I've got, because it came as a set of 3 pens with 3 different nibs. This is a stub nib, which I suppose is for italic kind of writing, I suppose. So you get thinner strokes when you go side to side and thicker strokes when you go top to bottom. But again, for sketching, it gives you a nice range of different marks. I think it's just a bit more interesting than having a pen that makes one thickness line whichever direction you go in. You know, it just adds a bit more life to your sketches, I think, when you use an unusual nib like this. So again, that seems to work quite well. I will say when I first got this one, it felt a bit dry. The ink wasn't flowing as nicely as it is now, and I swapped the feed out because the seller very nicely, I think it's called Thomas, very nicely sent me 3 spare nibs and feeds. So I just swapped out the feed that was in there for one of those others, but carried on using the stub nib, and that flowed much better and solved that dryness that I was having there, kind of just leaving the occasional gaps if I would draw a fast line, which pretty much doesn't do now. So the last nib I've got, which you'll have to bear with me because I've given the other pen away, I'm going to have to swap nibs over. So these nibs can be swapped by completely pulling out the whole feed and the nib and replacing those with the different ones, or you can slide off just the nib itself. Where is it? Here's the one I've just removed. So you can just slide that off. It's held on fairly tightly, and replace it with one of the others. So I've slipped on that. This is supposed to be an extra fine nib. So let's try that. It might take a moment for the ink to come through. And this one is much more of an even thickness, whichever direction you draw in. But again, flows nicely, works perfectly well. You can draw nice and fast and it doesn't dry out or leave gaps. It's a perfectly decent fine nib. I tend not to use nibs as fine as this very often for sketching, just because I don't know, they seem better suited to working quite small. But if you did do very fine hatching in your sketches, then that might be a good tool for that. You can get a tiny amount of flex, maybe. I'm not sure. It might just be the speed that I'm drawing at, but very small amount of variation depending on your pressure. But mainly it's just an even thickness, I would say. So yeah, three interesting nibs. A nice variety of different mark making tools, and at a very good price. So I'd be happy to recommend those if you're just thinking about trying some fountain pens out and not sure what type to go for doing some sketching. Then I don't think you can go too far wrong with a little set like that, just as a cheap way to dip your toe in the water of fountain pen sketching or writing. Thomas from Inkursive has very kindly offered to give my viewers a small discount. So hopefully there'll be a code popping up now or at the end of the video somewhere, and if you use that you'll get a small discount if you're interested in trying out these pens yourself. I'm not sponsored, by the way. Otherwise, happy drawing, have a good week, and see you for another one soon.